How you doing? This is the Puerto Rican Queen, bridging the gap between the rich and the poor, coming from the great state of Florida, visiting the great state of Florida. And I'm here with John E. Deaton. And thank you so much for coming. And I'm going to do a little rap about your life, summarizing the rap.
Okay.
I know, I'm kind of crazy like that.
That's
Yo,
okay.
let me tell you about it. Yeah, I know you love rap, by the way.
Yep.
Because you grew up in the hood, and I grew up in the hood, but I grew up in the hood in Puerto Rico. You grew up in the hood of Highland Park, Michigan. So this basically is the story of your life in rap. Yo, let me tell you about a man named Deaton. From the streets of Detroit, his story unbeaten. Brass knuckle beat down, schoolyard fights. Survival was his game, day and night. Surrounded by the struggle, the hustlers, and pain. In a neighborhood where hope was drained. Addicts, abusers, gangbangers too. But Deaton rose up. He had much to pursue. John E. Deaton, a warrior's tale. From the schoolyard fights to breaking the jail. A fighter, a survivor, he stood tall. In the face of adversity, he wouldn't fall. Law school hunger, cancer's cruel fight. While others have privilege, he embraced the night. A Marine, an attorney, a millionaire too, but his past haunted him, the pain it drew. Escaping the darkness, he found his way through battles and struggles, night and day. A father, a fighter, he never gave in. His life is a testament, a tale to begin. John E. Deaton, a warrior's tale, from the schoolyard fights to breaking the jail. A fighter, a survivor, he stood tall. In the face of adversity, he wouldn't fall. This memoir is raw, it's a confession deep, exorcising demons, the secrets he keeps, a proclamation to survivors far and wide. Don't give up, let your strength be your guide. In a world so uncertain, his story stands strong. Perseverance and resilience against all wrong. Like hillbilly elegy, his setting profound. In the face of darkness, he stood his ground. Johnny Deaton's a warrior's tale, from the schoolyard fights to breaking the jail. A fighter, a survivor, he stood tall. In the face of adversity, he wouldn't fall. Footstep warrior, a story untold of a man who faced challenges brave and bold. His life is a lesson in strength and faith. Johnny Deaton, salute to the great.
Whoa, outstanding. You got skills, girl.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that.
No,
And it's not easy because my first language is Spanish, by the way. It's not English. Es español. Mi primer idioma es español. Y como dije, de Puerto Rico.
Well, no, it's outstanding. I was getting a little bit of the hair on my arms standing up. You know what I mean? So thank you for
I'm
that.
glad you like it because it basically summarizes your story.
Great summation. Really is a great
Oh
summation.
my God.
Obviously, you read the book because you wouldn't have been able to write that without reading the book. So thank you.
There were so many things. Like I said, I know you grew up in Highland Park and I grew up in Puerto Rico, but there's so many things that I was
poverty.
Yeah.
Poverty in the hood, whether the hood is in Puerto Rico on an island, or whether it's in the inner city Detroit, whether it's in Houston, or whether it's in South Side of Chicago, poverty reaches all across the globe. And that's what I learned. And so I've had people like you tell me that that they could relate to things. That's all. As an author, that's what you want, right? You want to be able to reach people and the people be able to relate to you. And so it doesn't matter if you were in Puerto Rico and I was in Detroit. I'm sure we both know the damage that poverty and everything that poverty can bring, drugs.
Oh my God. And also you
violence.
grew up in a mostly Black neighborhood. So I am white and I'm Black. So I'm an Afro-Latina. And so didn't belong here, didn't belong there. You understand that, although you're not Black, you understand that because you grew up surrounded by people that didn't look like you. And there was so many things, like the horse story. My God.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It was like, we were laughing. I tell that story when I was in the car yesterday to my family, and they were like, "What?" I said, "I'm sorry. I'm going to try to make it as not raw." But one thing I like about your book is that you didn't like sugarcoat anything. You just went bang, bang, bang. That's it, straight up. Because life in poverty is not something. Although some people think or they glamorize. There's actually retreats now where people pay to be poor.
Yeah,
I said, I didn't have to pay to be poor. I grew up like that. I didn't have,
yeah,
it's like, why would anybody on purpose will try to experience that?
yeah. Well, let
Yeah.
me point this out. Since you were rapping, how many successful rappers stay in the hood? Not many.
No, everybody
No.
leaves.
So I always said when people glorify the hood or poverty, they may not have actually experienced it because there's nothing glorified about it, right? And
No.
so yeah, this book, one of the reasons I self-published the book was because when I talked to literary agents or whatnot, it was, well, you may have to tone down the language or the violence. And I'm like, listen, anyone
Yeah.
who reads the book will, I'm just telling the truth. And it's like I said, I wished I was black for the first 17, 18 years of my life. I wished I was
Yeah,
black.
I could tell that. I could tell that because
And
you felt part of this group.
right.
But
And
always to remind you, like when the time that you use the word nigga and you got kicked out and
I got my
everywhere
ass kicked.
because
Right. No, when
man,
I was just with a couple of my friends, I would use it in an endearing way, because it's just me and them. But then when I tried to do that to a stranger, I got my ass kicked. Right? It was like I learned, okay, if there's a difference, and it was an education, and so, but you're right. There's you say I didn't sugarcoat it. Well, life sometimes isn't sugarcoated for us, right? And
yeah,
poverty
no,
isn't
it's not.
sugarcoated. Violence isn't sugarcoated. My mother, if I witnessed domestic violence, whether it was my father or someone else, who put hands on her, I mean, that certainly wasn't sugarcoated. So why should the book? And I think, unfortunately, today, people hide or run away from the truth. Like we need to address it. We need to talk about it. There's issues in this country. Like I talk about in the book, it talks about the things we're not supposed to, right? We're not supposed to talk about race. We're not supposed to talk about violence,
Religion, politics, none
right?
of those
We're
things.
supposed to leave all of that aside. But that's not
Yeah,
life. And so,
no. Yeah, no, totally. That's actually those are the things that we need to talk because those are the most difficult things, and again, there were so many stories that you told. I mean, that guy, the monster,
yep.
so many things that again, it just I said
rape.
it's like,
Yep.
man.
Well,
And this is happening every day, and nobody really cares because it's happening in the hood.
No, it's people like, for example, obviously I tell the story of my sister when she was battling heroin, and
Oh yeah,
and I've got
you cut
scars.
yourself so that you can basically trap her instead that she attack you and she can go to rehab. I mean, I would have done the same thing for my sister.
Well, that's
the
what I'm
same
saying.
thing
And someone
without no remorse because it's either that dying or
right. And someone who has experienced a loved one, or they battle with drugs, or they battle with heroin, because people would say, well, how could you take a knife and cut your arm? Like, that's crazy. And my response would be, what's worse, that or burying my sister, who, I don't want to bury
exactly,
I don't want my
man.
sister to OD and die, or I don't want her to be, and so you take extreme measures because you're living in extreme scenarios. And I think that people need to understand that that not everyone lives a privileged life, that not everyone lives, and we experience, and we carry things in us. We all have pain,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter if you're successful. It doesn't matter if you reach financial success. Of course, that's great, and you want to provide for your family, but that doesn't mean that you're not carrying burden and pain around you. And it's okay to open up about it and say, like the monster story. I didn't tell a single soul for 40 years that happened to me. My mother never knew. My family never knew. I never told my ex-wife, who I was married to for 12 years. I mean, I just kept it inside.
Maria.
Right. I kept it inside. And so, and pretend that okay, well, just nothing I can do about it, so suck it up, John, and just move on. That can attitude is necessary at times, and it can get you a long way. But the book is letting people know that once you achieve your goals, if you don't address those things, they can find you later in life. You can't outrun your past. The past is always
no. It doesn't matter where you are, because you take that with you. You know, I have gamblers in the family. Grew up with a narcissistic alcoholic, untreated schizophrenic. That's my dad.
Yeah.
A very abusive, childhood, and just a lot of stuff. Just, Taimita, dígale que no me molestara. Lo sé, mi amor. Anyway, just that. Give me a second. Okay. So it's like, but because people don't talk about this, nobody wants to talk about the ugly stuff, right? Everybody wants to have a social media type of world.
We all want
right?
to pretend. Like we want to live our Facebook life, right? Or we want to live and that's fine, but it's not real life, and it's okay for people to like, if something happened to you, there's no shame in that, right? Like, so what happened to me, I didn't deal with it for a long time, but I was a child. It wasn't my fault, and I didn't do anything wrong, and I shouldn't carry any kind of shame or humiliation that it happened to me. And so one way of doing it is write it and tell the whole world, and say, instead of holding it inside, say, yeah, it happened to me, and I'll talk about it, because maybe it'll make someone more comfortable acknowledging. I've had several people contact me and just simply say that, it could be a female who was date raped, right? Or something like that. And that she's never shared, and she's been holding it in. And now she feels like, oh, wow, there's somebody who's successful allegedly, but look, he's going through it too, and went through it as well. And so I think it just shows us we're all got so much more in common than we do. I mean, we can vote certain ways, and we can have politics, and we can have different religions, but at the end of the day, we really, really are much more in common with each other than we realize.
Yeah, no, that actually is true. And I think the powers that be in our country is so divided right now, and and this is not what we need. We need unity, because a lot of the things, and I noticed your tone at the end on how our government has become corrupt, and people that were supposed to recuse themselves didn't recuse themselves, and that happens so much. And you've seen that as an attorney of how people don't care about anything but the bottom. Right. Bottom line, basically money, and people suffer. I actually, you were talking about how you defend people in asbestos cases, and how makeup has asbestos and all this stuff. And I'm like, nobody talks about that, because they don't want people to know, because then nobody will use makeup.
Right.
And then we wonder why some of us have issues, health issues. You deal with cancer. You dealt with a tumor and all this stuff. I'm like, anybody could have been. And let's go to the one of the non-talkable issues, suicide. You talk about several times that you thought about just checking out, and basically just remind me of some of the same.
Listen, life can get hard, and that's what we've got to accept, that it isn't the Facebook and social media life that everybody's pretending, that they're experiencing, real pain, and yes, depression can kick in, and so I guess the point of that was to share with people, because on the outside, people say, oh wow, he's a good father, and he's got a law firm, and he's on Fox Business, and he's got some kind of success, and he's got money. So what? that doesn't mean, I guess what I'm saying is that I'm still human and experiencing the same thing. So it's just admitting to people that, yeah, there were a few bad moments in my life where I thought, you know, from when I was 14 or when I was 25 or whatever, of am I going to check out? Am I going to give up in this world? Am I going to check out?
Mhm.
And just acknowledging that, I think can help people, because sometimes you feel like if you get to that place and you have a thought like that, it can make you feel ashamed. So maybe by me sharing that, hey, I had those thoughts too. Thank God I didn't, you know, go forward with it or anything like that. And I didn't take any steps to actually do it, to show them that that's just a moment in time. Like you can overcome that. There's much more positive to look forward to, and don't get trapped in that moment of sadness, that moment of despair that you find yourself in. It'll be temporary, right? It may be hard to come out of it. It may be a difficult path, but it's worth it. And so not to give up on yourself.
Yeah, and talking about moments of difficulty, you talk about being in debt when you left the other firm and you decided to do your own firm. I mean, that was ballsy. And on top of that, the college loans, and then having all these kids on top of it. It's like, well, I have to pay for this. How do you were able to got out of that debt? Because you don't talk about what you did to get out of paying the loan. You know, how do you pay the loans and deal with all that craziness that you had in the monetary before you became?
It's a great question, and you're right. The thing is that it's first is to share with everybody that, hey, when I was making, $100,000, $110,000, $20,000 a year, and my wife at the time, stopped working. She had student loans. I had student loans, mortgage payment, car pay. I drove a beat up truck. She had a Volvo station wagon with a car payment.
Oh my goodness.
But the point being is that I was still living paycheck to paycheck. So I was writing the the heat bill 3 weeks late or this one late. And so I know what that life feels like. That was my life all the way up until my 40s. And so as far as getting out of it is to not get sucked into the perception, right? And so if you can't afford a $70,000 BMW, don't drive it. And it's okay. So I used to tell my sister, my young sister, Michelle, when she would see some boy and he'd pull up he'd probably be 20 years old, 21, and he'd pull up in an $80,000 7 Series BMW. And she'd be like, look at him. He's balling, man. He's got to be paid and what this. And I said, check it out. I said, listen, he's fronting. He's absolutely fronting. I said, watch. I bet he puts in $5 or less in gas. And he goes, he puts $2. He puts $2 in gas. And I look at it and I go, that boy is living with his mom still. And he's paying for that car just so he can portray himself as being more successful than he is. Just accept the fact that live within your means and don't care so much what other people think, right? And so, when I got divorced, it's funny. When I got divorced and I started dating again, I would always pick up a girl, female, in my pickup truck. I had a beat up pickup truck, right? I had a nice.
You did it on purpose to test them, right? To test them if they were with you for you, or testing if there were not any other reason,
exactly.
Right?
And by then I had an AMG Mercedes, that I could afford, whatever. But I would pick them up in my pickup truck, and a couple times they'd be like,
I love it.
I thought you owned your own law firm, right? And I'm like, yeah, I own my own law firm. Oh, this is what you drive? I'm like, yeah, I like this truck. You know what I mean? Like, I like it. It fits my personality, but you could see that. And don't worry about that, because that's all bullshit. It's all nonsense that people fall into that trap of wanting to impress other people, right? That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. And that's what I like about you, because you don't give an F about anybody, what they think about you. And that's a theme that I got. That's why you didn't care about suing the SEC. You didn't care taking down the makeup people, even though basically it messed up your reputation. You didn't care that that Chris that did not do the right request with all the papers, especially your Rhode Island thing. I'm like, I'm glad that he fired him. I'm like, you don't do what you need to do. But again, I also I understand where you're coming from, that you didn't want to fire him yet, because you tried. Where we come from, you give people a lot of chances because you see the worst of the worst.
Well, that is, listen, if you enjoy firing someone, there's something probably wrong with you, right? Like as a person. And so you don't enjoy it. But like even the book there, just it touches upon how I think that the society is gotten out of control in certain things. Like, the fact that it was his birthday and it was his second day at work. Like not his second year, not someone who's worked for me who said, John, it's my birthday. Can I take half a day or get the day off? I always say yes. But on your second day to say, hey, next week's my birthday.
After you screwed up
what
twice.
Are you do for? Right. What are you going to do for me? Right. It's like, what do you mean? What am I going to do for you? I don't owe you anything.
You're going to fire him. That's what you're going to do for him.
Yeah. And so, but it's that sense of entitlement that I think, there's that saying that hard times, make tough people, and easy times make soft people. And I think so as bad as I would never want. Obviously, I would never want certain things that happen to me to ever have someone experience those. But at the same time, I'm grateful for the lessons I learned. Because of the perspective it gives me.
So look at what one of the people said. Depression is so rampant right now. Suicides are up since COVID. That's actually another thing. I mean, that we dealing with that. But when you have all these experiences compounded in one person, it just, again, if you don't deal with it, it's going to come out other ways. And I actually, you were very courageous and basically just basically telling us your whole life, talking about your addiction, your problems with Oxy and all this stuff. I'm like, wow. Like a lot of people just want to make themselves look the best and not show all the vulnerabilities, all their life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But you don't do that. And I'm actually, let me show people, because again, you need to get this book, guys. Like seriously, if you haven't gotten it, and let me just show here, because I got it in Amazon, and here it is. I mean, guys, it's now you have the Kindle. When I bought it, it was no Kindle. I was like,
it's taken. It's taken a little bit. Like I said, I self-published it because, I just wanted it to be real. And you're right. I don't. I debated over it because I share all my flaws. I share all the bad decisions I made in my life. The bad, the good, the ugly, the beautiful. I try to just share it. And I debated over, do I admit that? And then realize that I'm not alone. There's people out there, and let them see that they can fall. Like you can be up here and you can still fall, and but you can pick yourself back up after you fall. And so that's the most important thing. And
yes.
So yes, I had a massive back surgery, and the doctor came in and said, hey, there's this new drug. This is in 2000. There's this new drug called Oxycontin, and it has time release, and it's not addictive. And so, they're passing it out like candy. And the next thing you know, after, 3 months of being on that, all of a sudden your body gets used to having the narcotic. And now you find yourself, battling, pill addiction and scripts. And, and all of those things. And so it can happen to the strongest person in the world. It can happen to, it doesn't make you weak. It makes you human.
Yeah. I mean, and the point that you basically, I mean, you passed out and you end up in the hospital. I mean, I think it was twice. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. And
some of us end up in the hospital with addictions. You end up in the hospital when you're dealing with other, depends on the addiction that you had. Mine was alcohol. So it's like, it just, again, it reminds you of how easy it is to end up in something like that when you're dealing with health issues, because you were dealing with a pain of back. I have lupus.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you know anything about lupus, but it's like a lot of pain too. And that's why I barely take any medication, because I always was afraid I already had enough with being a recovering alcoholic to actually dealing with something else on top of everything else. Right. But man.
Yeah, it's very easy. It could be, I've had friends who, they come home and they have every night they have 4 or 5 drinks, and then the next thing you know, it gets out of control, and fast forward 2 or 3 years, and now they're an alcoholic and struggling, and not realizing that it affects you in everything you do, your relationships, your work, and all of those things. But it can happen to anybody, I guess, is really the point. And that hopefully people see that by me admitting all these things, despite on the outside I look so successful or put together, at the end of the day, I'm just as screwed up as anybody else out there. You know what I mean? And it's okay.
So somebody said they did a new test to prove that your DNA is changed forever. Methylation happens and your organs can shut down.
Yeah.
Opiates change your DNA for life. I don't know. But with that too, you can also heal your body. I believe that's why I do I do kind of like conventional medicine and alternative medicine.
Yeah.
Because also your mind has a lot of power over your body. That's one thing that I miss about Germany. We lived in Germany for 4 years because my husband was military, Army. Well, I know you were Marine, Semper Fi, but they actually combine both types of natural and chemical together, because there's some things that you can actually help with that. I have a question. So I know you were dealing with a midlife crisis, and your way of getting out of the midlife crisis was to sue the SEC. Like, what the heck? Everybody thought that you were crazy doing this. Like, what did you feel like you needed a mission to get out of your midlife crisis?
Yeah,
what were you thinking?
To be honest with you, at first I was just angry that our government was doing that, and I knew that regular people, the people that, you, me, people who are not billionaires, who are not multimillionaires, regular people, some people who would have their life savings, invested, were going to get screwed over. And there was just no reason for it. And so it just started off with me angry, and then saying, well, am I going to sit around and complain about it, or can I do something about it? And I said, well, let me do something about it. And it was the reaction of people like you who felt inspired that I went after the government and I stood up to them.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. It was ballsy again, because that's how I heard about you. It was because I'm in the XRP army,
right?
And when people were like making fun of us and saying that XRP wasn't going anywhere, that it was going to lose. And I still can believe that last Friday, the SEC just dropped the case. Like, what in the world? Like, what is happening after they filed the interlocutory appeal that you said it wasn't going to fly because they didn't have anything to really, that it just was not filed the right way. They didn't have anything that they needed to, basically fine or something. What happened? Because the SEC doesn't give up.
No,
Like,
listen, what they did is they sued the two executives because they thought that they could bully them and intimidate them because they were seeking lots of money from them. And so when they realized that they were going to not give in and were going to fight them, they just dropped the charges because they weren't going to win. And that's what the SEC does. The SEC is not brave. If they can't guarantee a win, then they're going to go home. They're going to pick up their ball and go home. They're not going to engage in a battle. They like running over people. They like intimidating them, forcing them to plead guilty or what have you. So that's really what it came down to.
But they could have just kept it going, and because Ripple has basically wasted a lot of millions. I'm not saying wasted, but
you could argue it's wasted. Yeah. They've spent over $100 million in legal fees. $100 million. That's incredible.
Yeah, and I know that I bet that they will recuperate that, but the damage of the SEC did. Is there going to be anything happening against that? Because a lot of us suffer because of what they did.
Yeah, well, we're going to be able to. What we need is you can't really go after the SEC itself, but the question is, can you go after a group of individuals who conspired to do this, right? The people that were in corruption.
Hinman, Berger, all those people that you were talking that basically set the bomb on fire and then left.
Yes. And so they basically, there is an opportunity. We really do need an investigation by the IG or someone to get their private emails, because I'm pretty sure that that's going to give us the case. And so we still have time, though. We still have time for regular people to maybe hold those people accountable and possibly get some compensation down the road.
Yeah, because it was a thing. Hinman and the SEC didn't want to release the Hinman emails.
No,
but I didn't know it was that bad, because I felt that there was something that I didn't know that said, I bet these people are connected to the others, because they gave a pass to Ethereum, and Ethereum had an ICO. Shouldn't Ethereum be a security?
Sure, it was.
You see what I mean? It's like there's some things that people that should have gone after they didn't, the people that didn't need to be, they just, and FTX, an example, this is the other issue, because it's giving everybody, all of us that are in the crypto space, a bad name. Yeah. I don't think anything is going to happen to SBF personally, because he was best friends with Gary Gensler, the parents, and all this stuff. Do you think that anything will happen with that?
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for him to walk. At the same time, he embarrassed all them. So I'll be shocked if they come out and save him in any way. He should be looking at 60 years. He should be. And the fact that he's not pleading guilty, which means once he's found guilty by the jury, the judge will probably throw the book at him. And so I'm fairly confident that in his case, he's going to get at least 30, 40 years.
But isn't he, is he from here, or because he was living in the Bahamas?
Well, he was certainly a U.S. citizen, but he lived in the Bahamas. Yes. And there's no doubt he met with Gary Gensler. He met with the CFTC. He met with Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Joe Biden. And he got to meet them all, because he was the number 2 donor behind George Soros to the Democratic Party. At his trial, his old girlfriend, who is the CEO of Alameda Research, Caroline Ellison, she testified that Sam Bankman-Fried gave $10 million to the Biden administration.
Oh my God!
In order to gain access to Gary Gensler and those guys, and it worked, because he got to have private meetings. And so what we need is Congress to do its job and to subpoena all those records and make them public, but they haven't done that yet.
Well, they actually did the integration of Gary Gensler. I don't understand why he's still there in power. When you said in the book that he was going against all crypto, I already had that. I said, this is this is bigger than just one token, right? It's bigger than just Ripple. It's everything lumped into that. So now that the SEC dropped the case, how many tokens are going to be protected, or do you think that's going to still try to regulate by enforcement? Because that's what we're doing. Because there's not, we're still using laws from early 1900s. That doesn't make any sense.
No, that's what I meant by Congress has to do its job. We're using, laws that were created 80 years ago that dealt with farming, and now we're dealing with blockchain, technology. And so the same thing's going to apply to artificial intelligence and other types of technologies, but Congress isn't doing their job. And so we'll see. The problem is we're in the middle of an election year, right? So we have this election and that means nothing's going to get done. They can't even pick a speaker yet,
Nope.
And they're all incompetent, or they're all bought and paid for by certain people. It's very powerful. I was on a Spaces on Twitter, and I said something, and they shut it down because of what I said. You know what I mean? And they just canceled the whole Spaces because I said something against one of their sponsors. So it just goes to show you that these people that we're fighting and going against are very powerful, influential people.
Man.
So,
how was writing your book? How did it help in your healing? I mean, or because you had to basically relive some of your stuff by writing about that. How was that a process?
Well, writing the book was the best therapy for me. Everybody's different. So when I first, the first time I talked about the monster was to a psychiatrist. It was the first time in 40 years I never told anyone. And immediately the psychiatrist said, okay, well, here's Prozac, or here is Zoloft. And I was like, listen, I don't want any more pills, right? Like, that's just masking. Like, if I have to feel this, let me feel it. Let me get past it. And so I decided for me, I'll start writing a book about these experiences and as a way of dealing with it. And it was, obviously there were times that were tough for me I'd have to stop writing, and, it was emotional, or I had to relive it or whatnot. But that was my way of dealing with it, was putting it, pen to paper. And so, and I never at first thought that I was going to publish the book. And about halfway through the book, I started thinking that, well, are there other people out there that maybe it would help them to know, right? Like that, hey, this stuff happened to me. If it relates to you, it somehow you can benefit from it. I don't want them, because it's tough when you avoid it for 40 years and then you achieve your goals financially, for example. Then all of a sudden you start, like I talk about in the book, start having flashbacks, and I start having the dreams, and like, why am I now thinking about it? And the reason is because I was so focused on not being poor anymore and getting out of debt and working and being a good father. When I had all that distraction and motivation, I didn't reflect on those things. Once I got to the point where I was successful, well, by that time, my daughters are moving out to college. And so now I'm faced at home alone, and I don't have my daughters to distract me. I'm no longer, in poverty, so I don't have to be distracted by that. All of a sudden, it started coming to the surface. And so the book was my way of sort of like admitting to the world that, hey, I witnessed and experienced some bad stuff. I'm okay now, but it almost broke me for a while because I was trying to not deal with it, or I was trying to avoid it. That's not the way to do it. The way to do it is to just accept it, deal with it head on, and then ultimately decided to publish it.
Wow. And I'm glad that you published it on your own, because they would have told you take this, take that. And it would be basically a flattened version of your life instead of the real pressure in
Right.
your life. I was actually, when you were talking, remember when you got arrested,
Yep.
dealing with the
In
the
the
ex
whitest neighborhood in America.
oh, Christy. I mean, Christy's ex-husband. I'm thinking, did you sue them? Because I mean, I know they dropped the case, but like these people
No,
are,
yeah, I sued. Yeah, I sued the police department. It's the case is ongoing right now. It's still going. It's in litigation and in appeals and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was the first time really in my entire life since I was 9 years old and pooped my pants, as you remember. Since that time,
I wasn't gonna bring that, but you brought it.
if anyone touched me aggressively, like
Mm-hmm.
I would just start throwing down immediately, right? I'd try to break their arm, I'd try to knock them out, whatever I had to do. And for the first time, when someone did that, I wasn't violent. I actually restrained myself. And then he goes and he lies to the police and they arrest me. And so it was like the one time I did the right thing, I got punished for it. And so yeah, but that just goes to show you that you don't know what life is going to be. When I was living in the hood and I did things, whether it was selling pot or whether it was engaged in some kind of violence or something, maybe drunk driving in college or something, like I never got arrested. I go and I move to the whitest neighborhood in America, 98% white, in a rich neighborhood, and I get arrested. So,
but
and I get arrested for doing the right thing.
But incompetent police that didn't follow the law, that didn't even Mirandize you. That's basic. No. That's basic legal 101. Just by that, they have to drop the case, right? If you don't get Mirandized.
When I did, just like the Ripple case, when I demanded a trial, they were like, okay, we're not going to do it now. And they dismissed it. So.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So what is going to happen now that the SEC dropped the lawsuit? What do you think is going to happen with Ripple?
They're going to argue over the judge found that Ripple in the early years sold XRP as a security. And so right now they're just going to argue over what's the appropriate amount of money. Should Ripple pay 50 million, 100 million, 200 million, whatever the number is? They're going to argue over that. Ripple's going to show that it should be as little as possible. The SEC is going to argue that it should be as most as possible. But that's really all that's left in the case. And then maybe once that's decided and the judge issues a final ruling, then it could go on appeal after that.
Do you think they can use the Ripple can use the damages basically as, hey, don't charge us that much because we already basically lost millions or whatever money because of what you did?
I think Ripple's going to be very successful at reducing it quite a bit. You know what I mean? So I don't think that I think the judge is going to be very sympathetic to some of what Ripple's got to say. And plus, on top of that, this isn't fraud. So you're not out to punish the company. It's just technically because we're applying those laws that you brought up from the 1930s to today, it's confusing. So why would the judge isn't out to punish Ripple? It's just to give them a fine. And so I think that Ripple's going to be fine.
So now, I mean, can we say then that 100% that Ripple, I mean, that XRP has clarity, or we cannot say that until they slap them on the hand?
I mean, is it possible that the SEC files an appeal this time, like say August or September of next year, and then 18 months later, so it would be 2 years from now? Is it possible that that the appellate court overturns what Judge Torres did? It's possible, but I think it's the same kind of possibility that I'm going to be hit by lightning tonight, right? It's very, very slim to none. It's possible, but very, very unlikely. Judge Torres wrote the decision in a way that really the appellate court's not going to touch it. So I think that it's fair to say that XRP is one of the only assets right now that does have legal clarity.
Okay. What do you think is going to happen with Coinbase? Because now Coinbase is being sued by the SEC. Yeah, and, that's another thing. I mean, just like it happened to Ripple, they were selling their crypto for a while. They're being in this and reporting everything that they were doing to the SEC. And now they decide to just slap them.
Yeah, I think that I think Coinbase is ultimately going to win the case, personally. And I think that that's the decision, hopefully, that comes down before the end of the year. But I think Coinbase is definitely going to.
So somebody asked you a question. Can you ask how his life experiences have helped him with the Ripple trial in the SEC and being a lawyer?
Yeah, mainly what we talked about is that, and I say in the book that once you've gotten your ass kicked growing up like I did, everything's in perspective. And so I'm not worried about what are these Ivy League lawyers at the SEC going to do to me? When I've had the worst things done to me as a human being when I was a child or, growing up, there's nothing that they can do that's going to hurt me or my life. And so on one side, it gives you the kind of attitude of I can take on the world then, because you're not going to kill me. You're not going to rape me. You're not going to do some of these other things. So what are you going to do to me?
You're not going to shoot me. You're not going to stab me. You're going to do all that stuff.
You're not going to put me in jail. There's nothing you can do to me. And so come after me. I don't care. I don't care what you think. So that attitude of like, I just don't give a shit what they think of me. Like, I only care what my family thinks of me, what my children think of me as a father. If I'm friendly, if I'm friends with someone, I care what they think, that I'm a good friend or something like that. But to the rest of the world, I don't give a shit what they think.
I love that. By the way, she also said, also, when everyone or everything seems against you, how do you still see your own vision and where you want to go?
You just got to stay true to yourself and know where you are, where you come from, and what your values are, and not worry about anything else. If you just and you don't worry about what you can't control. If you can't control it, you can't control it. Don't worry about it. Just worry about what you can control. And if you worry about what you can control and you do the right thing, then I really do believe in the end, you're going to come out on top.
And look at somebody. I mean, I think our XRP community is the best community out of all the blockchain.
It is.
I don't think there's anybody. By the way, I love the way when you didn't have enough people to work for you, that we were answering questions. Like we love our community, and we will do whatever it takes to answer questions and support you and stuff. So that we got another one here, Crypto Basis, say go XRP. Of course.
I have to go pick up my daughter at 5. Okay. I don't.
Thank you so much.
So, but
for coming here.
I know I was delayed. I made you delay. I apologize for that. I hate doing that. So thank you for understanding, and look forward to seeing you somewhere down the road.
Yes, definitely. And like I said, I'll send you my information so you can give me a dedication. I can add it to my book.
Absolutely. It's my honor.
And we'll let you have you here whenever you have a little bit more time. Okay.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Have a great weekend. Bye-bye. So I hold a lot of XRP, and no one for a long time believed me that it was going to be something huge. It's all about trusting your instinct and sticking to your gut. Oh my God. Totally, girl. So, yeah, I'm sorry, because he had to leave, but I'll tell him, because I talked to him, if you notice. What platform does he use? I think he's in Twitter. You can follow him in Twitter, Mr. Cruz. Okay. So Twitter. Okay. Yeah, it was great. I'm very happy that he was able to come. Just very, you missed my rap, but you can go watch it in the beginning. Basically, I summarized his book in a rap. That's what I did. And so it was amazing. I mean, seriously, guys, if you don't get his book, you want to know everything about this dude, this is going to answer your questions. Okay. Get it. I can actually, let me just put it here so that you guys can get it, because I am telling you, this book helped me in so many ways, because like I told him, his life is very close to my life. The only thing is that I grew up in Puerto Rico, he grew up in. So if you guys want to get the book, please use that link. So you can get it in Amazon. You can get basically the soft book, the Kindle version, or the hard book at this link that I just posted. Does anybody have any questions about anything? Everything was great. And oh my gosh, I can't even believe it. It was amazing being able to talk to John E. Deaton. Seriously, people. Seriously, that was amazing. So again, thank you so much, Mr. Cruz. That's what's up. So if nobody has any questions, again, get your book on here. It's in the link in the comments. You can get the book there. Get whatever book, whatever version suits your, floats your boat. And thank you so much, Mr. Cruz, for stating amazing interview. So everybody, I hope everybody subscribes to my channel. I'm trying to bring more people, more interesting people here. So thank you, everybody. This is Crypto Rican Queen, bringing the gap between the rich and the poor, coming from the great state of Florida temporarily, because I'm from the great state of Texas. Remember that. I love you guys and take care. Thank you so much, everybody. Carol, I'll see you later, guys. Take care.